Okay, I want you to imagine a market where no single company has any power whatsoever, where prices are the absolute lowest they can possibly be. Sounds kind of like a fantasy, right? Well, economists actually have a name for it: perfect competition. It's the ultimate theoretical benchmark for how a market could work, and we're about to break down exactly what that means.
So, here's our game plan. We're going to follow the journey of one tiny, single firm to really understand how this entire system clicks. First, we'll look at what makes a perfect marketplace. Then, we'll uncover the secret sauce, the profit-maximizing rule. After that, we'll face the tough survival decision, then see the long-run reality of this whole setup. And finally, we'll figure out why this brutal world is actually considered efficient.
All right, let's jump right into Section 1, the perfect marketplace. Now, to make this all feel a bit more real, I need you to imagine something. You and I, we are now the proud co-owners of a small business. Let's call it the Radiant Raspberry Farm.
Now, for our farm to exist in what economists call a perfect market, 4 incredibly strict rules have to apply. First, there are tons of other farms just like ours, and tons of buyers. Second, our raspberries are completely identical to everyone else's. No special brand, no secret flavor. Third, literally anyone can start or shut down a raspberry farm, no problem. And fourth, and this is a big one, everyone knows everything about prices and technology instantly. These 4 conditions create a very specific and pretty challenging environment for our little farm.
So, what's the big consequence of all those rules? It means our farm is what's called a price taker. We have zero, and I mean zero, power to set prices. If the going market rate for raspberries is, say, $4 a pint, then guess what? That's our price. End of story. If we tried to charge even $4.01, our customers would just laugh and walk to the next stall. We have to take the price the market gives us.
Okay, so if we can't control the price, what can we control? Well, that brings us right to Section 2, the profit-maximizing rule. Our one big decision every single day is simply how much to produce, right? How many raspberries should we pick today to make the most possible profit?
You know, the logic here is actually super intuitive when you think about it. You should keep picking one more pint of raspberries as long as the extra cash you get from selling it is more than the extra cost to pick it. The very second that flips, you stop. That profit sweet spot is right where the extra revenue exactly equals the extra cost.
Now, of course, economists have a fancy name for this way of thinking. It's called marginal analysis. That extra revenue you get from selling one more pint, that's your marginal revenue, or MR. And the extra cost to produce that one more pint, well, that's its marginal cost, or MC. So this all leads us to the golden rule of profit maximization for pretty much any business out there. You produce right up to the point where marginal revenue equals marginal cost. MR equals MC. Simple as that. Now let's see what this actually looks like on a graph, because that's where it really clicks. First up, let's think about our marginal revenue. Since we're price takers, every single extra pint we sell brings in the exact same amount of money, whatever that market price is. So that means our marginal revenue is just a flat horizontal line. For us, the price is our marginal revenue. Step 2, marginal cost. Think about it with me. Picking those first few baskets of raspberries is pretty easy. But to get more, you might have to hire extra help or run your equipment a little longer, maybe use more fertilizer. Your costs for each additional pint start to creep up. So our marginal cost curve is typically upward sloping.
And boom, here it is. We put the 2 lines together, and the exact point where our price line crosses our marginal cost curve, that right there, my friend, is our profit maximizing quantity. We'll call it Q star. That tells us exactly how many raspberries we should be picking.
All right, let's move on to Section 3, the survival decision. So we know how to make the most profit when times are good. But what happens if the market price for raspberries just tanks and we're suddenly losing money hand over fist? This is probably one of the toughest questions any business owner has to face. I mean, when you're losing money on every single thing you sell, is the right move to just lock the gates and stop producing immediately? The answer, it turns out, is not nearly as simple as you might think. So to answer that, economists make this really critical distinction between a temporary shutdown and a permanent exit. A shutdown just means we stop producing for a little while, but we still have to pay our fixed costs, like the rent on our land. An exit, on the other hand, means we sell the farm, pack it all in, and we are out for good. And each of these has a totally different decision rule. So in the short term, the decision all comes down to our variable costs. You know, things like fertilizer and paying our workers. If the market price for raspberries falls so low that we can't even cover the cost of picking them, we should shut down. And why is that? Well, because at that point, we're not only paying our rent, we're also losing more money on every single pint we sell. It's actually better to just pay the rent and stop the bleeding from production.
Okay, time to zoom out. Welcome to Section 4, the long-run reality. Let's see how the individual shutdown and exit decisions of thousands of farms just like ours create this incredibly powerful force that shapes the entire market over time. It's what people famously call the invisible hand.
So let's say raspberry farms are making amazing profits. Word gets out, right? What do you think happens? People see an opportunity, and new farms start popping up all over the place. But as more and more farms start producing, the total supply of raspberries goes way up. And as we all know from basic economics, when supply goes up, the price goes down for everyone.
And guess what? The exact same logic works in reverse. If prices fall so low that farms are consistently losing money, some owners are just going to give up and exit the market. As these farms leave, the total supply of raspberries starts to shrink. And with fewer raspberries for sale, the market price starts to creep back up for the farms that manage to survive. This whole back and forth of entry and exit just keeps going until the market finally settles into what's called a long-run equilibrium. This is a stable point where the pressure for new farms to enter and the pressure for old farms to exit are perfectly balanced. And this happens at the exact point where the typical farm is earning zero economic profit.
Okay, I know what you're thinking. Zero economic profit sounds absolutely terrible, but in the world of economics, it's actually not a bad thing at all. It doesn't mean you're making no money. It means your total revenue is enough to cover all of your business costs plus what you could be making somewhere else, like a normal salary for yourself and a fair return on your investment. It means you're doing just fine. It's a healthy, sustainable business.
And this all leads us to our final and maybe most important section, Section 5, the big payoff. After all this relentless competition, with profits being constantly competed away, why on earth would economists have the nerve to call this brutal market structure perfect? Well, the perfection is all about efficiency. This incredibly intense competition forces two amazing outcomes for society. First, you get productivity efficiency. This just means that stuff gets made at the absolute lowest possible cost. There is no waste. And second, you get allocative efficiency. This means the market produces the exact amount of raspberries that people actually want. No more, no less.
And that, right there, is the real magic. The invisible hand, driven by thousands of individual farmers, just trying to make a living for themselves, ends up creating the best possible outcome for society as a whole. Nobody has to plan it. The perfection of this market isn't for the businesses, it's for us, the consumers.
And this brings us to one last big question to leave you with. If perfect competition really is the ideal model of efficiency, why is it so incredibly rare in the real world? Why do the vast majority of things we buy, from our smartphones to our breakfast cereal, come from markets that are anything but perfect? Now that is something to think about.